This is the Kawabui Show. Kawabui is an author, international speaker, and entrepreneur. He started his first business selling music CDs in high school at the age of 16. He then went on and built several businesses. He is the founder of River Design, a marketing company that helps businesses get more exposure online and offline. He has appeared on TV, radio, newspaper, and magazines from around the world. He has written and published several books and created various products. Kawabui is also an international speaker, corporate trainer, and speaks on topics of business, entrepreneurship, motivation, health, marketing, and online business. You could check out his blog site at www.kowa-bui.com. And now, your host, Mr. Kawabui.
So Steven Harvill and his company Creative Ventures has helped many companies around the world, including Apple, Pepsi, Samsung, and Wells Fargo in the areas of sales and business development. He has recently written a best-selling book called 21 Secrets of Million-Dollar Sellers, which has helped many people around the world improve their sales. Today I'm really excited to interview Steven and pick his brains on what it takes to become successful in sales. So welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to have a chance to visit about it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us today. So for those who don't know, could you please give us a bit of background on who you are and what you do, please?
Sure. I am the founder and the president of Creative Ventures. We're a strategic planning consulting firm with our main offices in Dallas, Texas. Mm-hmm. We're in our 33rd year of doing this, so we've worked with companies all over the planet, been very blessed with a fantastic client list, and we work in 7 key strategic fields. All of the ideas we originally developed, and then companies engage us to access those ideas. That's kind of what we do as our main source of revenue and our main value add to all the companies we get to work with.
Yeah, so I saw the client list. You were working with Pepsi, Samsung, Wells Fargo. That must have taken a bit of time to drum up that type of business. So,
though we were really blessed right out of the gate. When I started the company, we had Disney as our first client. So it was one of those things that you kind of were in the right place at the right time. And then as the years rolled by, we were able to develop relationships, and then those led to other relationships, and then pretty soon you've got yourself a bona fide company. And that's kind of the luck of the way things went for us early on.
Okay. All right. So I was reading your book, 21 Secrets of Million-Dollar Sellers, and I think you mentioned that you used to work in corporate in sales. Is that correct? You're working in the field of sales?
No. I've really never been directly in sales myself. I did at one point when I was very young get my real estate broker's license, but I never really did anything with it. Sales just became one of those fields that we studied very closely as a company and organization, and then developed the questionnaire that led to the content that eventually became the book.
Ah, I see. So you researched it, and you interviewed lots of people, and then you managed to get like the information out of that, and then put that into like training packages and also teach. We're very, very good at pattern recognition, and I'm a scientist by education, and so you're able to find patterns, and once you know what a pattern is, you have access to the system that the pattern governs. And so a lot of the stuff that we do is based around this pattern recognition and then systemic approaches to it. So early on, I was very interested in what the people that were really, really good at what they did, what they were doing. And then the goal was to kind of discover that no matter what you were selling, what was everybody doing that was basically the same. And that was the core strategy that ended up resulting in the platform that we have around sales, and then what eventually became the book. Okay. So you mentioned before that you've got a very strategic approach to things, and what you said just then about patterns as well. I noticed that that's like a particular way of thinking where it's all about finding different solutions, and then you sort of like picking a path and then you execute. So would you say that's an incredible type of skill that you need to adopt when you're
approaching sales? Like, do you have to have that strategic type of mindset, or anyone can just pick up this skill, even if they don't have that strategic mindset that you have?
That's a really interesting question. I think there's a certain amount of natural a natural tendency towards liking people and being able to recognize the value of relationships. But if you want to be a professional, and if you want to add the adjective top professional in front of it, it's a very systemic and hardworking element that those people do that build that. And so I do think there's a value in how you approach it, and saying that these are the skills I'm going to build. This is the way I'm going to think. These are the patterns I'm going to follow. And if someone can give me those skill sets and those patterns that are already in play with people that are the best at what they do, then that mitigates the risk of pursuing some of that. And I think there's a lot of that in that success formula.
Interesting. Okay, so let's back up a bit. So in terms of sales, what common mistakes do you commonly see in terms of patterns that people make, when they're making sales? Like, what patterns do you see that people can avoid?
Well, let's take one of the largest ones is most sales professionals are horrible listeners. They've been taught all along the way that whenever there's a bit of silence, they should fill that silence with more pitch for whatever their product or service is. Great sales professionals don't do that. They're very active listeners. They don't make that mistake. They've learned along the way that if they can listen, they'll discover what the inroads are to making a structured attack to what that client needs, what their needs are. And so I would say one of the mistakes that great salespeople do is they talk a lot. They don't listen enough. And if you could develop that listening skill, that active listening skill, where you say, I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to activate my listening to what the client is really saying. I think that's one of the huge mistakes that people make. Another one is I think a lot of times they don't look at sales as a career. If you go back and you say, if I could choose any career to be in, what career would I choose that has unlimited upside? And the only career that has that is sales. You can make as much as you're good enough to sell. And so I don't think they view it as a career. And those that are pinnacle performers, they would tell you that this is their career, that they are in a sales career. So they build their skills, they work hard at it, they attend conferences, they read books, they do all those things that make them better at what they do. And I think, so two key mistakes is, one, become a better listener, and two, this is really a career, and you should treat it thusly.
That's a really good point there. So it's listening and treating it like a career. Like, it's not just a hobby. You have to really absorb yourself, right, into
the really good ones do that. And I would say if there was one more, I would say take a look at anything you can do to simplify how a client interacts with you and the product. A lot of people sell very complicated things: financial products, robotic surgery equipment, insurance policies. And the buyer, though they're familiar with the field, is really looking for the most simple approach to understanding that. And great sales performers simplify their approaches. They look for every opportunity they can to remove complexity from the model. That would be another mistake people make, is their models are too complex for a buyer to engage rapidly in. So the more simple something is, the more rapid the engagement is.
Yeah, I remember reading about that in your book. You explained about the whole simplicity, where the top performers, salespeople, they tend to just simplify everything and just remove all of the additional processes, and just make it like just a one-step approach to making the sale, one-step approach to just accessing the software, or one-step approach to doing whatever. So yeah, that's a really good point that you've made there.
When you do that, you will be amazed at the results. But that's a skill set too, right? The ability to thoughtfully reduce something so that it's not, as Einstein said, it's not too simple. It's just the right measurement, kind of like the Goldilocks measurement of simple.
That's a really good point. So let's have a look at the career part of it as well. So how about, what are your thoughts on someone who doesn't have that much experience in sales. They're in a completely different industry, but they really do want to branch over into sales. Do you think they'll be able to make it? For example, let's say you got someone who's in IT and he's always in front of the computer, he knows how to code, but he wants to get into sales. Would you recommend that would be a good path for this particular person to go into that career in sales and to build up from there? Is that limited to get into that industry, or?
Well, I think anybody can learn anything. If you gave somebody a violin and a year's worth of lessons, and they practiced a reasonable amount of time, at the end of that year, they'd be able to play songs for you on the violin, even if they had never held one before. I don't believe that there's anything that someone can't learn to do. It's about that accountability towards learning something new, right? You have to hold yourself accountable to that. So I don't think there's anybody restricted from a movement, from what they're doing now into the field of sales, provided they're willing to do that work, provided that they're willing to gain an understanding of what the skill sets are associated with it. And if you think about your IT example, the guy in the IT department has spent years learning how to code. He knows exactly where to go, right? So that same level of commitment has to follow him or her if she were pursuing that in sales. But I don't believe there's anything that someone can't learn to do. Now, you may become good at it. Maybe you won't be great at it, but you can be good at it. And making a living being good in sales is really, really, really a great goal.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier about it's really scalable as well. There's no limit to it, because with sales, there is no ceiling to your income. Like, you could just pick up any product, any service, and just go out there and sell it. But when, let's say you're in an IT job or you're in some type of 9-to-5 job, your income is just limited to the amount of hours that you work there. So I think,
right.
Yeah, what you said about the scalability part of sales, and everyone should get into it, is a really valid point. That's really good.
Yeah, there are salary ceilings where in most sales, though certain companies have there are certain restrictions. Most of the time, it's up to you, right? You're accountable for the outcome. And when you get to do that, when you're involved in a product you believe in, a product you understand the relationship between the buyer and their needs, most of the time it's unlimited, right? You can make as much as you can sell.
That's right. Okay. All right. So the next question, like, how did you come up with the idea of writing the book? Like, that day when you decided, okay, I'm going to write this book about sales and I'm going to interview these people.
I had no intention of ever writing a book. The content in the book is our sales strategy platform. And a company approached me, had heard me present the ideas, and said, boy, this is good. This would be a great book, and our company will help you write it. Our company will market it. They'll design the cover. They'll get it into bookstores, and our fee is $60,000 US dollars. And I went, what? I go, you want me to pay you $60,000? I write the book, and then I said, well, I'm not interested in doing that. I said, I'm flattered that you would think that, but I'm not interested. And it made me think a little bit about the idea. We had already written another smaller book that Amazon Press had done for us. And then I thought I would contact a friend of mine who was a literary agent in New York. And I said, hey, Lynn, this guy talked to me about it. And she said, do you have an outline for this? And I said, no, not really. She goes, give me an outline, do this. And I sent it to her, and she said, Steve, I can sell this book. I guarantee you I can sell it. Why don't you go ahead and do a full proposal, which I didn't know how to do or didn't even know what it was. And I hired an editor to help me do that. And she went out and called me, and she said, there's going to be a bidding war on the book. There's 7 publishers that want to do this. And I kept thinking, you've got to be kidding me. And then the next thing you know is she calls on a Tuesday morning and says, here are the 7 proposals. I think we should go with Simon & Schuster. They've been doing it for 120 years. They know what they're doing. They're top professionals. And I went, it happened like so fast. And she goes, this is serious. When you sign this contract, you're going to have to actually write this book. And I went, well, I'm kind of an ex-surfing scientist tennis bum. And I went, God, that sounds like
really serious, and it turned out to be really serious, and we ended up signing with them, and I kind of taught myself how to write a book, and I had a great editor and an unbelievable agent and a team at Simon & Schuster second to none. And the next thing you know, you've written a book. And it was an incredible experience, a ton of fun and a lot of pressure and we had the research, but it wasn't really in the form that you need to do research for a book because it was never intended to be a book. So I had to dig around for old data and elements like that, and then 9.5 months later, it's a manuscript.
Yeah, it's I bought the book this year actually. I was just traveling and went to Australia, and then I went to Perth and I saw it. And what really got my attention was the headline and the book cover, obviously. I really love the headlines. It's 21 Secrets of $1 Million Sellers. It just pops right out. And
that's funny you would say that, because that, of course, wasn't the original name of the book. It was originally called Repeatable Successful Acts: The Power Behaviors of $1 Million Sellers. And I love the RSA, because you could just call it RSA, Repeatable Successful Acts. But Simon & Schuster didn't like that at all. And turns out when you're a first-time, writer for a major publisher, you don't get to choose the name of your book. I'm sure Stephen King gets to choose the name of his book, but I wasn't going to get to choose. So, and it turned out to be, they were brilliant, right? They knew exactly what they were doing when they changed the name.
So it seemed there was a bit.
It got you to buy it.
Oh yeah, it got my attention because I always go to bookstores and I'm always scanning the latest books, and this one really it just stood right out. And then I straight away bought the book and this other sales book, and then I went to Fiji, and then I was just lying by the pool just reading it, and I really like it how it's just, I've got it in front of me, how it's just written. It's just really easy to read, and it's nicely organized.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
thanks. I'm honored.
Yeah, I actually finished reading it in a day. I read the whole thing, and then I blogged about it and wrote this really long blog post about it. It's really good. So yeah, you've done really good job there. That's as good an endorsement as I'll ever get. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So I can't wait to share this book with more people. So, but there's also a really I think it was on the first chapter or the second chapter. It talks about the Jordan formula. About that one. I really like that analogy. So could you please share with us what the Jordan formula means?
Sure. That's based on Michael Jordan. People would say arguably the greatest player in the history of basketball, but certainly one of them. Michael, as good as he was always the first person at practice and the last one to leave. Even when he was an MVP and an All-Star and an NBA title winner, that despite his skill sets, he always worked as hard as he possibly could. And we saw that pattern with with almost all of the 175 people we interviewed for the book. Well, we really interviewed 200 and chose 175. And it's that idea that if you put your energy into getting better at what you do, and if you think of learning kind of as Austin Kleon once said, learning is the verb of life, and you then realize that out of all the stuff that goes on around you, the markets, the government intervention, the change in interest rates, the rise and fall of markets, you have no control over any of that. But the thing you have control over, and you always will, is how good you are at what you do, how hard do you work at your skill sets, and how do you treat your clients. And those two things you will always have control over. And so the Jordan formula is basically saying, if you have control over that, there's no excuse that you're not getting better all the time. And what are you doing to get better? How hard are you working at that? Because all of these sales professionals that are at the pinnacle of what they do, they're constantly getting better. And that's kind of what that chapter was about.
Okay, so it's all about focusing. So you're saying it's all about focusing what you can control, and just being aware that there's other outside factors that is not in your control, and just avoid that, or just prepare.
Yeah, you have no control over any of those product mix, divisional elements, whatever. But you will always control how good you are at what you do. Okay. Always.
Okay. So you mentioned that by observing these people who were really good, who became top professional salespeople. From your analysis, how long did it usually take on average? How many years or months did it take for them to become really great?
Yeah, there were not a lot of really young people in the study. You don't get to be at the top of your game out of the gates. Now there were younger people, but these people were seasoned professionals, which is really what you need, right? You need to have something that you can look backwards on that then helps you plan for tomorrow, right? So a great performer has a string of yesterdays that you can ask about, that you can study. And then those elements, which become these 21 power behaviors in the book, then create the plan for other professionals that are reading the book, that are looking for advice to plan their tomorrows. And so in order to get that richness in the study, most of these professionals were what I would call seasoned. There was a great mix gender-wise. There was a great mix, nationality-wise in the study. We only had one criteria. There was only one filter, and that is you had to be the top at what you do. You had to be at a minimum in whatever you judged as $1 million producer in your company for us to get to really want to talk to you in this particular study.
So you interviewed a complete different mix of people, and you get all this information. And then, how about in terms of age? Do you think age is a limiting factor of this one?
I don't think it's limiting, but I think it's hard. If you look at a $1 million sales model, and you say you're coming into the industry and you're a $200,000 producer, and then you're going up this curve, right? And the next thing is maybe 300,000 to 500,000, and then 5 to 750,000, and then 750 to $1 million, and then to $1 million plus, right? If you're following this curve, right, you can see that you're making these different pinnacle leaps within the context of whatever you're making the leaps within the context of sales numbers, and that takes time to do that. Right? And companies focus a lot, right? They want that $500,000 seller to become a $750 seller. And they want that $750 to become a $1 million seller. And so they focus their energies and times around those moving people along that line. And there are people in that model that are very satisfied at the 250 range, right? They're happy being a $250,000 producer. And you need to have those people. It's the people that we were interested in are the ones that progressed up that curve.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking there was I went to this meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke to this person. He was in recruitment, and he hires lots of different people in sales and everything. And he said something. I don't know I think it's a limiting belief, but he said that he believes that sales is a young man's game. Where they'll just hire like people in a certain age range, and then they'll get these people just to talk to this particular type of people. What are your thoughts on that one there?
I think I would probably respectfully disagree a little, right? If you're recruiting for a sales position in a specific field with specific knowledge of a specific product or service, you're going to want someone that's been there before.
That's right, yeah.
Now, if you're bringing somebody in to start them at the lowest level, that's different. But a person that's been there before, that's built a book of business, has taken time to do that. And so when you're recruiting someone like that, you're recruiting someone that's a seasoned professional. And it happens all the time, right? Guys move laterally from one company to another within the context of the same service or product. But as far as it being a young person's game, I don't think age is as limiting as experience is. I don't know. Do you know who Tony Hawk is? The great skateboarder.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony Hawk's like the greatest skateboarder that's ever lived. When he was about 11 years old, he was the greatest skateboarder on the planet at 11 years of age, right?
Wow.
But Stradivarius didn't build his best violin till he was 87. I'm not sure that age is something that you look at. I think you look at desire, enthusiasm, skill sets, elements along that before you look at age.
That's really great what you just said there. Instead of looking at just the age as a number, you just look at the desire and the experience. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, if you look at
they found a sketch of Michelangelo's that he did when he was 80, and at the bottom he wrote, "I am still learning." This was Michelangelo who said, "I'm still learning." He wrote at the bottom of a sketch. So there's that aspect that's a constant deal, right? It's just a constant deal.
Yeah. Okay. How about let's talk about motivation as well, because obviously people in sales, they're getting out there, they're generating leads, they're talking to people, but obviously you're going to get rejected as well, and therefore it can affect their motivation levels. So from your research and your analysis, like these top performing salespeople, how do they motivate themselves to get over it? Do you see that they do some type of technique that's more effective than other people? Or?
Anybody in sales spends the majority of their time in the realm of no. Of no, I don't want this. No, I don't need this. No, I don't want to take your call. No, I don't want to see you. They spend their time in no. In fact, there's probably 1,000 no's to every major yes. So you have to understand that that's just part of the deal, right? If you're going to be a runner and you're running in the heat, you're going to perspire. It's going to be hard. It's just the nature of that element, right? And so in the book, one of the chapters is called "Embrace the Dark Side," and it's about that idea of embracing the fact that you get no's. Every no is a learning experience, right? Every no teaches you what to do to get to the next yes. And so, I know this. I hate this saying where people say it's not personal. Everybody takes those kinds of things personally. And so those that can build upon them, that can just say, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm not going to approach it like this. I'm going to approach it like that. And that every one of those no's became something that they learned to build their bridge to yes on. Those are the most successful salespeople. If you're going to be beaten down, and at the beginning, believe me, everybody is beaten down by no. There's no avoiding it. It's as natural as breathing is in sales. You just have to be able to understand what the perspective of that means, and that each of those opportunities that come in there, and of course it's easy to say that when you're in the whirlwind of no, it's hard to grasp your head around that. But all of those things are learning. One of the guys in the book had a wall in his office, and on the wall was every no that he had received, and it was a wall of negativity. And on it, he would look at it before he would go out on a sales call. He would look at the wall, and he would remember, don't make that mistake. Don't make that mistake. And while he was doing the interview, a guy walked in and said, "Hey, Bob, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were busy. I wanted to take a look at the wall." It was another salesperson who wanted to come in and look at all the negative elements that he had posted on the wall so he could build his skill sets and his sales presentation around those. And it destroys a lot of sales careers early on. There's a lot of people that don't make it out of the no.
So what you're saying, it's all about reframing the no, instead of looking at it as it's like a personal attack or something that will bring you down. You try and reframe it into something positive, like putting the no's up on the wall and using that to motivate you to get past it. And I think that's a learned aspect
of sales. In this career, that's a learned aspect. And you've got to be, you need to be prepared for it. And if a company doesn't prepare people for that, it's shame on them.
Okay. So what about the top 3 techniques you would recommend for people to follow in order to prove their sales? From the top of your head.
Well, if you're looking, and let's think of this as skills, right? What are the skills you want to build? I'll tell you one skill that is critical, and that is you have to understand the impact of story, what story has. And if you can become a good storyteller and build the context around what you're doing within a story, you'll make connections a lot faster, an unbelievably level of time. It's the oldest strategy known to man. Story is about 60,000 years old, used as a tool to transmit information, right? And so the idea that you can understand that stories are crafted, that stories are told, that a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that there's structure to it. Those people, I will tell you, to a person, everybody that was part of this study, they were all outstanding storytellers. They use story to connect with their client. They use story around their product. They use story to show examples. All of that element was based around story. And if you notice in the book, the book is filled with little stories. It's a technique that we use. We've taught story for 20 years now. That's one skill set that anybody can learn to be a better storyteller and to use story as a sales tool. That would be one key element, I think, to it. The next element is you've really kind of got to love the product or service that you're associating yourself with. If you don't, it's almost an immediate, the buyer senses it immediately. So you've got to actually like what you're selling to be really good at selling it. And if you don't, you might as well go find something else as fast as you can, because it's going to be a terribly limiting factor to your success. So those are two things that pop up, right out after talking about listening and simplification and elements like that.
That's
and slow down. That would be the other one.
Okay.
Slow down. People always think that speed is an intricate part of these elements, and we have a speed should never exceed thought. That's one of the sayings that we use in my company, and it should never outweigh thought. And what people want more than something fast, they want it right. They want it correct. And good sales performers manage speed real well.
Okay. So instead of just going fast and trying to, speed up the process so quickly, just slow down, try and take your time. Don't manufacture it like in a machine type of way, but just
exactly right. And they'll tell you that no, speed's the difference between success and failure. And I will tell you, that's virtually never true. What's the difference between success and failure is how you think and how you perform. And you cannot do that moving at the speed of light.
Yeah, I really like how you have this approach where you can really analyze something, and it's really amazing how you analyze all this information, and you can really bring this out and just grab all the gems from. It's like a kind of confusion. You can really.
It took a long time. It took and we have this in almost all of our strategy platforms, right? So we've got the strategy platform on story. We've got a strategy platform on idea development, on simplicity, on strategic planning. And all of them are built around the same architecture that we built the 21 Secrets around.
So can you tell us a bit more about that one, how you've got the strategic services that you offer for
about strategic about the planning platform?
Yep.
Our strategic planning platform is called Elegant Simplicity, and it's about taking very complex strategic planning and reducing it down to a three-part model. One of the threads that runs through everything we do is nothing, no system, no process will ever exceed 3 parts. That's the barrier of simplicity. When you hit 4, it's the beginning of complexity. And so everything we do is geared around these 3-part processes, right? If we were smart enough, we'd be able to figure out how to do it in 2, which is way better than 3. And 1 is the pinnacle. 1 is the light switch, right? Nobody ever questions how to use a light switch. That's the ultimate goal. But our strategic planning platform, the Elegant Simplicity, is based around a 3-part process of taking a look at what you're planning. And in a nutshell, it is, where are you now? And that's all planning. The problem with planning is most planning starts with where they want to go, where you want it. What's the big goal? And that destroys the effectiveness of a good strategic plan, because you always have to start with where you are now. So we call this current reality. We begin all planning around whatever you're doing with where you are now. So kind of think of it like if you were booking a trip somewhere on a travel site online. You want to go to the Bahamas, and you start planning, the very first question that's going to be asked to you are, where are you leaving from? I can't plan anything unless I know where you are. So it starts with that. It then goes to an analysis of the goal structure, and then we allow 3 actionable points to move where you are to where the goal is. And it's an unbelievably simple approach to something that people make way too complex. Way too complex. And I don't know why business does this all the time, and I'm glad they do because it keeps us in business.
It's always a good thing.
We were just in Ohio. Colin and I were just in Ohio on a strat planning project in which we were looking at what was going on. We had to say, stop a minute. You're struggling to explain this to me. It's so complex, you're struggling to explain it to me, to explain it to us. It's way too complex. So let's start the process of making this a little more simple. And I'll leave you with one last thought on that, and that is, don't confuse the word easy and simple. They often get interchanged when they mean 2 completely separate things. Easy means a lack of effort. Simple means a lack of complexity. And so what we're working on is not something that won't require a lot of effort. We're working on something that has removed complexity.
So it's like you're providing more clarity in the business, where you're providing them extreme clarity where they have set milestones and objectives to achieve through your strategic planning methods.
We give them a platform. They have a systemic approach. They have a model. And then we work with them as they end up applying the model.
That's great. All right.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Okay, how about are you planning on writing any other additional books or creating new courses? Or
we get that all. That's the most common question. Is
lots of people.
Yes, what's the next book?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if I'll write another book. It was really fun. A lot of people write business books because their business needs the book. We really didn't need the book. We already have been around and doing what we're doing for a long time. But we do have 6 other idea platforms that all could make for really interesting books. That's a really good question. I have no idea if I'll write another one or not. I know my team in Dallas would really like me to do another one, but I'm not sure yet. Yeah, I'm not sure yet if, it's a strangely solitary thing, writing. And, we have a monthly newsletter that goes out to thousands and thousands of people. We have a regular blog, so I'm always writing. It's just the continuity of writing that creates a book, right? It's the connected ideas. So I don't know. I get asked that all the time, and I always answer, I don't know. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's the only answer I have. I don't know if I'll do it. We've got plenty of ideas for them. Unbelievable research. Our leadership platform alone, we use the exact same model that we created the 21 Secrets in a year and a half, 2 years later, when we went back and interviewed the leaders of all the companies that were involved in the study and found the 11 power behaviors of all those leaders. These were the 11 things that all of the leaders were doing, no matter which of the organizations they were leading. So we call that the DNA of leadership. That could be the next book if I end up doing one. I don't know.
I think
I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting what you said earlier about how you were talking to Lynn, and it was just the idea of writing the book just came from there. It's like the universe just sent you this idea, and then you just acted on it, and then you did it. It wasn't really planned, right? So.
The world is. What did Sherlock Holmes said? The world is filled with obvious things which nobody by chance ever observes, and this was kind of one of those things that was just an obvious. It was obvious to everybody but me, and then the circumstances just kind of happened. But I will tell you, you have to recognize a circumstance, right? Opportunity, which is a favorable junction of circumstances, and so the opportunity was there. And you've got to kind of be used to looking for that and knowing what that looks like. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we were able to do the book, and then we had such a great team. I mean, my agent and Lauren, who was my editor, who was brutal and honest. Colin, who did an unbelievable job freeing time by running the company, where I didn't have to run the company and I had time to write. And then the love of my life, who would let me go down to the office and say, okay, I need 4 hours, to do this, to do it. So a lot of those things happen. If you didn't have a good team behind you and people that were supportive along lines like that, I would think it would be 10 times harder to do it.
Yeah, actually, well, me and Colin were exchanging emails, and I can just see through his professionalism and what he does, it just really reflects on your quality of work that you do. And
I have to fight constantly. All of our clients constantly want to hire Colin away from me. Oh, really? And I have to say, no, he's not available.
Yeah.
He's not interested. Yeah.
Yeah, he
does a great job.
Great job. All right, so how can people reach you and contact?
Oh, sure. Our website is www.creativeventures.com. You can sign up for the newsletter, get all of our back stuff, watch all of our videos. All of that stuff is available on the website. You can sign up for anything. If you just want to contact me and send me a note, I answer all of my email every single day. It's steve@creativeventures.com. And you can just send me an email, and I'll answer your email if you have a specific question.
Wow. That's fantastic. So the website is creativeventures.com, and your email
creativeventures.com,
is... Yep.
And steve@creativeventures is my email address. And if you have any questions or you want to visit or run something by me or something like that, just send me a note.
Fantastic.
I travel almost every week, and so I'm in all these different time zones and sometimes different countries, but I'm always have access to my email.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Steven. So thanks for being on the show, and I really wish you all the best for future endeavors. And
it
really
has been my honor, and and if I can do anything to help you, Colin, just send me a note, contact Colin, and we'll do it again.
Great, fantastic. I really appreciate that. All right, thanks a lot for that, Steven. Really appreciate it, mate.
You're welcome. We look forward to hearing your final product, and I was honored to get to share ideas around the book. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, sir.